Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is for Ms. Webster. If your company had to replace styrene with another substance, would you still be able to sell your products at a competitive price, and how would that impact your bottom line?
No, I would not be able to be competitive. It would make it easier.
Microphone, please, ma'am, Ms. Webster.
It would make it definitely easier for imported products to come into the United States. I do have a bio-based resin that I do use. That has actually gotten us more business. People do like the aspects of us going green. But no, the cost of the other resins that do not have styrene are very cost prohibitive. And we have looked at vinyl esters and epoxies and things like that. It's just not cost effective. It will increase imports.
It'll increase imports, and then obviously if you were to, and this is just me throwing this out there, if you were to use another product, obviously that cost would be passed on to the consumer.
Absolutely.
My other question for you is, you had mentioned in your testimony that you know, obviously as a small business, you don't have the resources for compliance, a regulatory compliance officer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So who in your company is the person that is responsible to be complying with the federal regulatory process?
We hire a company to come in. They do a walkthrough. They do training. They do training on the forklifts and things like that. Once a year, they come in and go through the plant. They let us know if there's any issues. They pat us on the back, and knock on wood, we haven't had any problems. So we hire somebody to come in to do that.
My next question, thank you, Ms. Webster. I do want to add just one last thing, and you may not feel comfortable answering this, and if you don't, that's fine. Is that a very costly endeavor, having someone have to actually come in and help you in that process?
It runs, it's going up every year, but it runs, it's just under $1,000, but I think it's based on how many employees you have.
I see. Thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Webster. For Mr. Barker, I have a couple of questions for you. Do you feel that the report on carcinogens is helping or hindering you in creating a safer workplace?
At this time, I would have to say that it is a hindrance, although I think at this point not as great as it is likely to be. And from that hindrance, it distracts our employees from the real concerns that they should be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, wearing the proper protective equipment, being concerned about the physical hazards they work with, and they're distracted because of the concern about getting cancer from styrene that the NTP has said is reasonably anticipated to be a carcinogen. So they're concerned about that, and we're concerned that the further we go with this, as awareness grows, the more distracted they'll become.
And my last question for you is, now it is our understanding that Strongwell participated in the public comment process of the 12th Rock. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us whether or not your comments were responded to by the NTP?
Our comments, as far as I know, were not responded to.
Okay. And I'd like to, just for the record, point out, and there again, in the previous panel, Dr. Birnbaum had stated to the best of her knowledge that all comments had been responded to. But I do have an additional question. Thank you, Mr. Barker. For Mr. Belzer, in your testimony, you noted that the NTP completely ignores exposure or dose in making its determinations. And why is it important for exposure or dose to be considered when providing information to the public about substances that have the potential to cause cancer? I'm sorry, Dr. Belzer.
Sorry, it wasn't clear who you were addressing.
I'm sorry. No, I apologize.
The public has an obvious need for information on chemicals or substances that could cause cancer, but the dose at which those substances might cause cancer is very important. If it's something that happens at extraordinarily high doses and it happens in animals under laboratory conditions, that's an important fact, but that's very different than happening at environmental exposure levels. This is the type of thing that people ought to have information, have access to. I think that improving the targeting of the information so that, well, in 1978, I think there was a general notion that either a substance caused cancer or it didn't, and that seemed to be the prevailing state of knowledge at the time. But that's not correct. Things are far more complicated than that, and the NTP is quite capable of being more discriminating and to provide information that is more dose relevant so that people have that information as well as the quote-unquote worst case scenario.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your comments and your testimony. Thank you. I yield back.